Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our CMS virtual event series entitled Being a Responsible Business. Hello to those of you that have joined us before. You know who I am already, but for those of you joining for your first session this afternoon, my name is Anita and I'm an Early Talent Acquisition Advisor here at CMS. And alongside the lovely Meet and Engage team that are making us look good this afternoon, we're joined by my wonderful colleague Ella, another advisor in the team, and she is going to be interacting with you on the chat function this afternoon. We're also really excited to be joined by 4 speakers from CMS, who I'm going to introduce to you in a moment. But just a couple of housekeeping bits about the Q&A session at the end of the event. Do get any questions on the topic in the chat function. Ella will be on hand. She'll be collating all of the questions for the end of the session. And any other general queries that you have throughout the event, please do engage with Ella on the chat and she'll be on hand to answer any of those questions. So before we kick off, I'm going to start by asking you a short poll. So again, for those of you that have joined us before, you know the drill. So can you submit your answers to the following question? How much do you know about CMS's commitment to being a responsible business? So do you know quite a lot already? You've done your research before this event, or you know nothing at all? Don't worry if you don't know anything at all. That's why you're here. There's no trick questions here. So while we give you a moment to submit those answers, I'm just going to introduce you to our 4 speakers this afternoon. We're really, really excited to be joined by, firstly, Emily and Louise. Would you give us a wave? From our Responsible Business and Social Impact team. And they are really, really, really integral to the success of why CMS is such a responsible business. And they're going to be going through some of the initiatives and focus areas as part of their role and how important it is to the wider team. We're also joined by Lucy. Give us a wave, Lucy, who is our sustainability manager. She's relatively new to the firm and she's going to be speaking more specifically about environmental initiatives at CMS. And last but certainly not least, we're joined by Chris. Give us a wave, Chris. He is one of our partners in real estate, and he has a particular passion and interest in this area. So he's going to talk to you about some of the things that he's been involved with regards to social impact, D&I, health and well-being, pro bono and volunteering, and other social mobility activities to really hopefully inspire you after this event and hopefully to want to work with CMS in the future. So while we're waiting for those poll results, just wanted to have a quick reminder to you with regards to the Q&A. So now you've met our lovely panel, please do have a think of any questions that you want to ask them. I will be posing them at the end of the session. Don't worry about, your question being too silly, even if it's something really, really tiny. Chances are somebody else is also thinking it. So do get those questions into the chat. So I can see, actually quite a lot of people need this session and they're requiring a little bit more info. So 9% of you know quite a lot, but over 60%, almost 70% only know a little bit or not much at all. So not to fear, hopefully we'll be asking you the same question at the end of the session. So a bit of a spoiler there for you. And hopefully we're able to change that a little bit so you all come away knowing a lot more about why CMS is a responsible business. So without further ado, I will hand over to Emily.
Thank you, Anita, and welcome everybody. Really excited to be talking to you today. I'm Emily Catterwell, and I'm here, as Anita said, with my colleague Louise. We're in the Responsible Business and Social Impact team here at CMS. So the scale and the scope of the global challenges our society faces today and in the future are enormous. No one individual, business, government or country can solve these alone. We must all work together. Here at CMS, responsible business lies at the very heart of the firm and is firmly embedded in the firm's strategy and all that we do. Our ambition here at CMS is for the firm to be a leader in social purpose. We aim to inspire and to support our clients, people, industry sectors and communities, both locally and globally. Our approach to responsible business is focused on three pillars: our business, our environmental impact, and our social impact. We are committed to operating responsibly, upholding standards, looking after our people, and ensuring we operate a diverse and inclusive business. Climate action is also a top priority for the firm, and we are absolutely committed to addressing our impact on the environment. My colleague Lucy will be talking a bit more about our work in this area shortly. This year, we brought together the different strands of our community investment work and created our social impact programme. The aim of the new social impact programme is to ensure that together and individually, we are able to make a positive difference in the communities we live and work in, both locally and globally. Underpinning all of our work in the responsible business space are the UN Sustainable Development Goals and our commitment to the UN Global Compact. For those of you who may not have heard of the global goals before, these are a framework for building a better future for all. The global goals depicted on the slide are a set of 17 goals for government, businesses and individuals that address the greatest challenges of our time. The global goals are fundamental to building a better future for all, and we are committed to helping make them a reality. As a law firm, prioritising and upholding the highest possible standards and complying with all laws and regulations relevant to our business is an absolute priority. Our people are arguably our best asset, and we place the utmost importance on the health and well-being of our people. Diversity and inclusion are also imperative. Fostering a supportive and inclusive culture that encourages authenticity and celebrates all of our people and their unique backgrounds is key to our approach. I'm going to hand over to my colleague, Chris, who's going to talk a bit more about our work in this area. Chris, over to you.
Thanks, Emily. So, diversity and inclusion, I'll let you read the slides yourself while I talk to a few other things around diversity and inclusion. It is, as Emily says, at the very heart of what the firm stands for in terms of its culture. Everyone within the firm, regardless of what role you play within it or what level of seniority you hold, you need to play your role in being inclusive. This involves taking responsibility to educate yourself about how best to play your part in creating an equal, respectful and inclusive environment. Thankfully, the firm make it quite easy and include a welcome pack when you join the firm that breaks it down nice and easily for you. On the firm's intranet, there is a zone devoted entirely to the topic of diversity and inclusion, and it even includes a link to an e-learning module that helps explain in an interactive way how you can play your role. As well as educating yourself on differences and how to be respectful of diversity within the workplace, you need to be self-aware. Again, the firm's intranet includes some Harvard-made tests to assist your ability to develop your self-awareness and to help point out unconscious bias that you might not even know that you have. Words are very important, especially in a law firm, and accidental microaggressions are commonplace in society generally. Things that people say that are loaded with perceptions based on prejudice that people are not even aware of themselves having. We've worked very hard to educate even these small acts out of daily life within our firm to ensure that they are steadily phased out, not in a name and shame way, but very much in a manner that shines a light on it and educates everyone about it, and positively and constructively improves behaviours. Such has been the success in this area, our employment team have run a series called The Law and the Little Things, focusing on various types of microaggressions to help clients with the same challenges. The series has been really popular, with hundreds joining each session online. It has focused so far on gender, hair discrimination, social mobility, menopause, and the next focus will be on LGBT plus matters in November. Being a diverse and inclusive business is, of course, the right thing to do in the first place, but it is also vital to a successful and sustainable business. Everyone should be able to be their authentic self and bring every part of that to their workplace. If that can be achieved, all of that potential and positive energy will show itself, whether obviously or in the abstract, in the results and the success of the business. We have staff-led networks that include faith networks such as the Christian Network, the Muslim Network, the Hindu, Sikh, Jain Network, and the Jewish Network. We also have the Embrace Network, focusing on ethnic minority communities or those with relevant heritage, the LGBT plus network, the Enable Network for those with physical disability or similar, CMS Women, focusing on gender equality, Families and Carers, the Mental Health and Wellbeing Network, and the Social Mobility Network. Each of the networks were created by our people and are led by them. They organise events, seminars and discussions. For example, the Hindu Sikh Jain Network held a big event in our London office just yesterday to celebrate Diwali. The networks also work with our HR team in order to ensure that our people policies are as inclusive as possible and take into account cultural or community-based issues properly and comprehensively. And they are not a closed list of networks. If anyone felt that a particular community should have their own network, then it would be an open door to create a new one. It was suggested recently, for example, that a network focusing on those above a certain age within the business might be a good idea as a new network, so watch out for that. Most importantly, anyone can join any of the networks. They are as much about celebrating allyship by colleagues as they are about celebrating the community represented. All staff are encouraged to get involved, and I'm always very pleased to see how many people do indeed come to events and show their support and their interest. We're now also working with clients and contacts to develop targets for diversity and inclusion. These targets start by looking at demographics across the business to identify where there might be trends or weaknesses. Those are then prioritised when it comes to targeted strategies for improvement. Good examples are where there are fewer women than men in senior positions, or where ethnic minorities are not well or proportionately represented in certain teams. Action plans can then be produced to explore why that might be the case and to work on measuring improvement in that area with targets in place. These are things that our clients are also working on, so we can also work with and assist them with these challenges, as well as focusing on them ourselves in our own business. All of this is exactly what we want in order to shape our firm as both diverse and inclusive and a great place to work for all. As you can tell, I could go on for hours about diversity and inclusion, but we'll hand across to Emily and Lucy now so that we can keep to time.
Thanks, Chris. Over to you, Lucy.
Thank you, Chris and Emily. So as a business, as Emily's already mentioned, we try to align ourselves as far as possible to the UN Sustainable Development Goals, so taking quite a holistic approach to environmental, social and governance issues. We're leading the way in the legal sector in terms of our commitment to environmental sustainability. Back in 2020, we were one of the first law firms to set a near-term science-based target, and this is to reduce our emissions 30% by 2025 and 50% by 2030. And that's both for our own direct operations as well as for our supply chain. A science-based target basically means that it's been approved by the Science Based Target Initiative, and it's in line with the under 1.5 degree warming of the Paris Climate Agreement. We're aiming to go net zero by 2025, which means we will be investing in a significant offsetting programme alongside our work to reduce direct emissions. I think, yeah, we can pop on to the next slide. Sorry, I got that wrong, didn't we? Previous slide. So, in terms of monitoring our progress, we mainly do this at the moment via the Carbon Disclosure Project. This is a global non-profit organisation who assess businesses on their climate-related performance, and we've moved our score from a D up to an A- since 2019. We're also signatories to the UN Global Compact, which is a voluntary initiative covering 10 core principles around corporate social responsibility as well as human rights. And this year we became signatories to the Climate Pledge, which was founded by Amazon, and it commits us to net zero by 2040 at the latest. And the idea is that we've joined a community of other international businesses to share things like best practice around sustainability. So what we've been doing to make CMS a more sustainable business. All our UK offices now run on 100% renewable electricity. We also have made energy efficiency improvements to reduce energy usage, for example, replacing a fleet of printers to newer models with a lower environmental footprint, and replacing all our lights, which are now censored as well, so they'll go off when people aren't in the office. Paper use is another quite big one for a law firm. We're currently trialling Surface Goes to enable a completely paperless lawyer. And we also have a partnership with Print Relief, and we've offset all our paper use, planting over 17,000 trees since 2019. Other waste from all our UK offices isn't directed to landfill. This covers food waste, which goes to anaerobic digesters to make fuel, and all our packaging is compostable vegware. Electronic waste, if it's of no longer of use to us, we sometimes donate it to charities or reuse where possible. We have an updated travel policy, which encourages train use as much as possible as well, to reduce emissions from our air travel. And a huge one for us is that 90% of our emissions come from our supply chain. So we're working really closely with our key suppliers to support them in their own transition to net zero. And then finally, we've got a huge number of resources in the ESG space. It might be something you want to look at externally. We now have a new ESG hub, which is a new dedicated resource that draws together all our latest sustainability thought leadership. And so that's available to anyone. And we have a new training programme coming in for all our staff soon, which will upskill all our staff around sustainability and ESG matters. And that's it for me. I'll hand back to Emily and Louise.
Brilliant. Thanks, Lucy. So I'm going to just very briefly touch on our environmental impact from a social impact perspective. We're going to talk about that a little bit more in the next couple of slides, but I wanted to kind of just briefly mention also encouraging our own people to manage their impact and make positive changes. So Lucy's already kind of alluded to some of the stuff that we do as a business, but we also see a large number of our colleagues volunteering their time to support environmental projects in and around their offices, whether that's locally to them or to our offices or to our homes. So that can be things like volunteering at city farms or tree planting in the Pentland Hills, a whole range of different activities. In most cases, it also involves quite a lot of manure, but it's great fun. We also, as a firm, do a lot of pro bono looking in the environmental space as well. Again, we're going to talk a little bit more about in pro bono, but some really fantastic examples that we've done in the environmental space. And then also the bees. So earlier this year, we brought bees to CMS, to our offices. So as part of our commitment to improving biodiversity in our communities. We currently have hives in our London office, our Edinburgh office, and our Aberdeen office. And we're planning to, we also sponsor a hive in Liverpool. And we're planning also to expand this to our international offices and our other UK offices over the next year. And this is a really fun way for our staff to find out more about bees and other pollinators and biodiversity and how we as a business and individually can make an impact and make a difference. So I think if we now move on to talk about our social impact. Emily, do you want to jump in right now and take this bit?
Lovely. Thank you, Louise. That's great. Our social impact programme brings together all of our community investment work, as I mentioned earlier. So this looks at things like our charitable partnerships, all of our volunteering work, and the pro bono legal work that we do. Our focus is to use the Sustainable Development Goals that underpin all of our work in responsible business, to use that as a framework to pin our social impact work to. So we have chosen to focus on the 4 goals that you see on the screen in front of you. And those are the goals where we feel we can make the most difference. The 4 goals that we're currently supporting are peace, justice, strong institutions and the rule of law, goal 16, climate action, which is goal 13, reducing inequalities, which is goal 10, and quality education, which is goal 4. All of the work that we do in the social impact space very much rolls up under each one of these global goals. So we're going to talk now a little bit about our pro bono offering here at CMS. So providing access to justice is a key part of our social impact programme. We've got thousands of lawyers across the business who have specialist knowledge and skills that can help to support people and organisations. So providing free legal advice to charities and NGOs and social enterprises throughout the world is something that we do on a global basis. It's essentially providing free legal advice. This could be end-to-end casework. This could be supporting individuals in our local communities at legal advice centres. It could be providing legal education to charities and NGOs that really need our support. There's a huge range of different ways that people can get involved in our pro bono work. It's a really great way to use your skills to help others. Louise briefly talked about how we support environmental projects in the pro bono space, and I just wanted to highlight one of those very briefly. So we currently work with an organisation called the Chancery Lane Project, and essentially they are a charity that brings together lawyers from around the world to draft new clauses to go into contracts, which essentially will help combat climate change and positively contribute to making the world a better place. We've got lots of people across our organisation that are involved in their work, helping to create those contracts. So again, this is a really good example of how we as lawyers can use our skills to help combat climate change. I'm going to hand back over to Louise now, who's going to talk a little bit about our charity partnerships and charitable giving.
Yeah, so we work with a range of charities through pro bono support, but also through fundraising activities, through volunteering and kind of in-kind support. So kind of using our meeting rooms and donations to things as well. Our global charity partner as a firm is Médecins Sans Frontières, also known as Doctors Without Borders, or MSF. We've been supporting MSF for the past 2.5 years now, and it's kind of it's a partnership. It's a two-way partnership that, as I say, kind of it does include fundraising, but it also includes all of the other items that I mentioned. We also recognise that all of our staff have charities that are close to their own hearts, and so we want to also empower them to make a difference. So we have our social impact fund, which asks for nominations for local community organisations. And we provide grants from that. We also encourage match funding. So if someone wants to run a marathon, have a bake sale, something in between, and raise money for charity, we also do match funding for our staff so that they can kind of boost their fundraising activities. And then we also have various other different activities in the charitable partnerships and charitable giving space as well. We have a foundation, and there's so many different, and a lot of our offices also have local office charity partners that they support too. And then on the education and social mobility space, we recognise that the access to the legal profession can often be a closed door to some young people. So we work with students from primary school up to university in a range of different education programs. And this can be things like literacy programs. So we currently run an online reading program. It can be legal workshops and kind of providing career insight days and masterclasses. It can be tutoring programs as well. So we work with a charity kind of providing GCSEs tutoring. And yeah, a huge range of different activities that people can do in their own time. This ranges from kind of weekly commitments to monthly commitments. Mentoring as well is a big thing. And that kind of links quite nicely on to our volunteering activities. So we want to inspire our people to spend their time to spend at least 50 hours a year on pro bono and volunteering activities. So that could be on charitable activities, it could be on education and social mobility activities, it could be working with local community centres, with the elderly, with the homeless, and kind of basically addressing the real needs in where we work, both locally and globally. And at this point, I'm going to pull Chris in because Chris, as mentioned earlier, talking about his work with diversity and inclusion, has done a lot of volunteering there. He's also a mentor. He also does a huge amount of pro bono. So Chris, tell us all about what you do.
Wow, so there's going to be a little bit of repeat, I'm sure, of what you've just rattled off there, but effectively I'll talk about the things that I've had personal involvement with, and as I was preparing, realised it's a bit of a list. I've been doing this for a while, clearly. So being a responsible business isn't about having a team like Emily and Louise doing all of that corporate responsibility stuff so that we lawyers can get on with working lots of billable hours and focusing only on clients and their work. That's not how we operate. It's about every one of us within the business playing our role as part of our responsible business in the ways that make the job actually as enjoyable as it can be for us as well. Emily and Louise and their team do a brilliant job of facilitating and coordinating our work in this area, but they are a team of 3 or 4 out of a business of literally thousands of people. They cannot be expected to deliver it all on their own. That is why we encourage all of our people, and not just the lawyers, that's important, literally everyone, finance, business support, everyone, to get involved in activity that suits them. In fact, the firm doesn't just permit it by allocating hours or allocating hours to everyone every year to doing this sort of thing. Those same responsible business hours can also count towards the hours that are calculated when looking at bonuses. So they are treated up to an annual limit, the same way as work that we're doing for clients that actually gets invoiced and pays the bills. So we are literally putting our money where our mouths are. The sorts of things you can get involved in are huge in number and variety. So, as mentioned, if you want to run a marathon like I've done a few times, because I'm stupid like that, or if you want to jump out of a plane for charity, the firm will match your sponsorship. I think it's still up to £300, but that's every year, so you can do another one next year and get the same match funding. If you want to do something for our charity partners, whether that's Médecins Sans Frontières as our international charity partner or one of our more local partners, there is lots of support to help make events happen for them, and you will only ever receive encouragement to do so. My own team that's real estate, just to remind you, did a September challenge last month and raised nearly £13,000 for 2 of our partner cancer charities. The pensions team in London did something last week as well in memory of a member of their own team who tragically passed away of cancer a couple of years ago. So it can be quite a personal journey as well. As you've heard, we've got pro bono partnerships where we do loads of pro bono work for charities, and the ones that I am relationship partner for, if you like, are Marie Curie and the Prince's Trust, among others. So quite big and well-known charities. Those charities as clients of the firm are treated no differently to our big bill-paying clients, although we are doing their legal work pro bono, so that the funds that they're raising can go towards their amazing end causes rather than being spent on us expensive lawyers. Not wanting to focus only on the big charities, we partner also with organisations like, again on my patch, Inspiring Scotland, who put us in touch with tiny local causes who need help and frankly have no budget at all to seek legal assistance generally, so we can protect them as well. Some of these smaller causes are making the biggest differences to their small local communities, so it's important we don't lose sight of that and that we can support them too. As you heard, we run a scholarship programme to bring people into the profession who otherwise wouldn't go there simply because of financial barriers. And again, I enjoy being a part of that. And frankly, the telephone calls to the winners every year and when they burst out crying with glee are a really stark reminder that we're making a real difference there. So I love being a part of that. And I know, Emily, you've helped over the years too. So we do paired reading with kids in disadvantaged schools or in hospitals. Again, really rewarding stuff. We work in pro bono clinics, either locally run or organised by law schools and universities. I'm sure some of you who are in the audience do that already, but you can continue that when you come and work in a place like ours. We've had sleep outs as teams for the likes of Social Bite in their mission to end homelessness, and we have volunteers in Social Bite cafes, and I know there's an equivalent in Manchester as well. We engage in mentoring schemes like MCR Pathways, who provide mentors to kids who are in or in the periphery of the care system. And this is one of my favourites personally. I meet my mentee every Monday, every week. It makes a massive difference to the statistics of those pupils going on to positive destinations, either further education or into, decent work. We work with young citizens to deliver easy to understand sessions to young people in schools to help them understand the role that law plays in our everyday lives. And we partner with clients to deliver those sessions. We did that with the Weir Group, and we've done it with NatWest and other big brand clients that we have on our list. And they love being part of that. And I'll say it's a really good way to develop relationships with clients who also want to do similar responsible business activities. We've partnered with the same clients to deliver local environment projects as well, like river clearance and tree planting. We also partner with clients on our own initiatives like Prime, if you've heard of that, or CMS Connect, as we call it now, which Emily can explain more about if you need in the Q&A. Basically, we run so many programs and initiatives, it is actually impossible not to find something that you will enjoy rolling your sleeves up and getting involved with. And as a firm, CMS gives permission, encouragement to get involved. We actively encourage it. It makes the job, frankly, more enjoyable for everyone, and it allows us to play our part in our local communities and actually in society as a whole. Pretty much everything I've rattled off there, I've been involved with myself and more. I love being a part of all of that activity and being part of a business, frankly, that places such importance on it. Not only being given the freedom and permission to do it, but being actively encouraged to do it and even rewarded for it. It just makes, or helps makes this place, the right place to work for me. Once again, I could go on for hours. I'm bad for that, so I will actually stop myself and pass back to Emily. So thanks.
Thank you, Chris, for sharing that really, really great insight into all of the different things that you've personally been involved in. And I hope that's helped to inspire the audience to think about the type of place CMS is to work. As Chris said, working with our clients is something that we do very regularly in this space. As a business, as a law firm, as you'd expect, our clients are at the centre of all that we do. I think there is both an opportunity and a responsibility for us to support our clients and society to help them face the global challenges and deliver a more sustainable future for us all. Equally important is our role in advising our clients as they grapple with issues arising from the climate crisis, sustainability, and the rise of ESG. We, of course, deliver this support through our legal advice, advising clients, but we also do this through our social impact work too. So at the moment, we are working with around 30 different clients on social impact activities. Some of them I've shared with you on the slide on your screens. We do this in a variety of ways and across lots of the different activities that both Louise, Chris and I have mentioned already in the presentation today. But just to give you a flavour of some of the things that we've done recently. So we've been working with NatWest to deliver legal workshops to students via our charity partners or social impact partners, Young Citizens, helping them to explore the law and how it's relevant to them as citizens. We've been doing that actually for a number of years with NatWest, so we know that they really, really value the opportunity to work with us on these things. We've also recently worked with NatWest on supporting a local city farm in London, where we sent volunteers to take part in some sustainability and biodiversity initiatives. We've also been working with Amazon to support a local food bank, and we are in the process of development of lots of other initiatives as well in the future. We've also been working with Aon, who aren't appearing on this list at the moment, but we work with them collaboratively to deliver pro bono advice. We often find in the pro bono space in particular that our clients don't always have the requisite professional indemnity insurance to carry out pro bono work themselves. So we see it as a unique way for us to add value to our relationship by providing them the opportunity to sort of piggyback onto our insurance and enabling them essentially to be able to get involved in pro bono work. So there's lots and lots of different ways that we can engage with our client, and it's a really, really important part of what Louise and I and Lucy do in the team, helping the firm to, I guess, add value to our relationships with our clients and achieve mutually beneficial, responsible business objectives. So again, a really great way for us to work with our clients. I'm going to hand back over to Anita now, who is going to talk about some upcoming events.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Emily. And thank you to all four of you for that. That was absolutely brilliant and really, really inspirational, actually. And hopefully you as the audience felt that as well and got you excited to hopefully apply to us if you haven't already. It was really, really brilliant. So well done and thank you. So before we do a bit of a Q&A with some questions that have come in, I just wanted to ask you the same question as we did at the beginning of the session. So that was, how much do you know about CMS's commitments to a responsible business? So hoping you've been listening hard and learned a lot this afternoon. And while we're waiting for those responses to come in, as Emily said, I'm just going to let you know about the upcoming events for the rest of our virtual event series. So next week, we've got a couple of really great sessions. On Wednesday, we have our Imposter Syndrome and Assessment Days session, where we're going to be really tackling the topic of imposter syndrome, what it is and how we can really take control of it and use it to our advantage. And we'll also be running through our assessment day process, what that looks like, and some key hints and tips to really excel at that stage. Then next Friday, we're really pleased to be partnering with our Embrace network, as Chris mentioned earlier, which is our network empowering people from ethnic minority groups and their allies within CMS. And that's going to be a session kind of all focused on diversity at CMS. And our final week, with our final 2 sessions, we've got our London, the Regions and Beyond session, which is talking about life outside of London. So the regions within England and the UK and Scotland, and also in Dubai. And then our final session is our future facing law session, which is going to be led by our wonderful innovation team. So still some really exciting events to get involved with. But if you have missed any of the sessions in the series, or you want to watch this session back to kind of review anything, all the sessions have been recorded or are going to be recorded and will be available on our website on the events page. The link will be on there, so you can watch them as many times as you want at your leisure at a time that suits you. And you can also go onto the CMS portal, which you have been invited to on registration. So you can watch all the recordings from there. So don't miss out on any of the sessions. So we've just got the results of the poll in, and I can see that's kind of really good. So 40% of you feel like you know a lot, and no one feels that they don't know anything at all. So well done for the active listening, and I hope you've learned a lot, and that hopefully there's some kind of real bits of inspiration that you can now go away and research a little bit further into stuff that you might be passionate to kind of get involved with. Hopefully, if you join us in the firm one day or just tomorrow in terms of as part of your university or part of your local community. So we're going to do a little bit of a Q&A now. So I welcome our 4 speakers back onto the virtual stage, if you like, just for a little bit of Q&A. So first a question is from Zena. I hope I've pronounced that correctly. And they would like to know a bit more about the trainees and how they can get involved with this stuff. I was going to start by listing off a whole thing. I thought there's too much to say, so I just thought I'd go with stuff.
Well, Emily and Louise will testify alongside myself that the trainees are a fantastic part of what we do within CMS. The energy and the sort of enthusiasm that they can bring to the table, the fact that they're also rotating around seats around the business means they're exposed to different teams who are doing different things around responsible business activity, volunteering, client partnerships, D&I focus. You actually get an exposure to probably more than most who are more static and more, if you like, sitting at their desks and in the same team for the next 40 years of their career or whatever. So trainees have a fantastic opportunity and are really encouraged. You will never get a no from anyone when it comes to rolling your sleeves up. So frankly, if you are a trainee in the business, look, explore, find out what it is that interests you, that you are passionate about. There'll be more than you can actually take on available to you. So there's an element of go and pick the one that you think you can either have the best impact on, or frankly that you will enjoy the most, and just get involved. You just put your hand up to myself, to Emily, to Louise, to Sophie Briol or Ian in the D&I team. We will definitely be taking you up on any offers of support and effort. But to answer your question, trainees can get involved as much or as little as you personally want. But frankly, your colleagues who are already trainees in the business are very, very already actively involved, and why shouldn't you be part of that?
Thank you, Chris.
Just to follow up from that, Anita, if I may.
Sure.
We often have trainees that are currently with us asking if they can get involved in pro bono work, and I know Chris has said trainees can get involved in everything, which is absolutely true, but I just wanted to reiterate that just because an individual isn't qualified, it doesn't mean that they can't get involved. in pro bono work. Trainees most definitely do get involved in pro bono work, and they're supervised on that work in the same way that they would be on any other sort of client work. So I just wanted to clear that up, because that's a question that we get asked quite often.
Thank you. And then we've got a good question here, I guess potentially for Chris to lead, and then whoever else wants to follow up. So we talk a lot about to our candidates about authenticity and applications, and talking about things, you know, that they're passionate about. So a question is, how do we talk about social impact in our applications authentically, without kind of just regurgitating a load of stuff from the website? You know, how do we effectively talk about social impact in our applications?
It's a really good question, because I think when you think about it, what you bring to the table is what you need to show off in an application, really. So I suppose I would just encourage you to think of good examples where you have brought something to that table, to social impact. You know, there's so many different things that you might not even immediately think are relevant, but when you think, if you've done the Duke of Edinburgh's Award, for example, which many have done, I see that in the applications we get through quite a lot. If you break that down into the different things you've done throughout the exercises involved in that award scheme, then you actually have already given a lot in terms of social impact. So break it down a little bit. You don't have to say, I have gold Duke of Edinburgh's Award. Say what you did, because that's actually a good way of actually getting into the minutiae and giving some granularity to how you've already made an impact there. I'm using that just as one example. There are so many out there that you'll think of your own now. I've hopefully given you the idea. But I mean, I'm not sure if Emily or Louise have got other ideas. Louise, you've got loads of networks that you're part of, I know, as well. So you'll have some personal experience of how you can show that off.
Yeah, I think don't underestimate it, kind of. And I think, as I mentioned earlier, some of the activities that we do are kind of very they're regular commitments that people do, and I think that's probably the same for a lot of you. Kind of, there are things that you do on a weekly or a monthly basis, but there are also the ad hoc activities as well, and they can have just as big or sometimes just as big an impact as well. So, you know, that mentoring that you might be doing, that providing feedback on for a young person looking to do, you know, wanting a CV review, or they're, you know, looking at their LinkedIn, kind of providing that conversation. You know, what should I do? What should I go on to? Is this as an apprenticeship route the right for me as a university route? Sometimes those conversations as well, you know, you are making an impact on that individual potentially. I'm talking more on the education, social impact, social mobility space there. But similarly, kind of, you know, have you jumped out of a plane for charity? Why did you choose that charity? What kind of was the incentive there? Was there a personal reason? Talk about those as well. It doesn't always have to be a long sustained social impact commitment.
Brilliant. Thank you both. Great responses there. So thank you very much. So we've had a couple of questions in about in a kind of similar vein, really, but essentially asking, and it's probably a very big question because there's so much, but what has been your favourite initiative that you've been involved in so far?
It's a very good question. I've been at the firm for 16 years, so there's quite a back catalogue of different things that I've been involved in. I think there's probably one or two that stick out in my mind in particular, but our recent project that we did with Young Citizens. So we created or worked with Young Citizens, our social impact partner, to create a set of bespoke educational resources that focused on climate action and how law can be used to drive change. Those resources that are available for businesses to work with students on, and for teachers to deliver in schools, are a fantastic way to educate young people about the profession, about how law is being used to drive forward changes around climate action. And in particular, what's quite impressive about the work that we did on that project is that the materials that we've created so far, and it's only been a year since we created and launched those materials, have supported and reached over 25,000 young people, which I think is just incredible. And that has been a really great way for us as a business to use our skills and our knowledge to support young people across across the globe, but particularly here in the UK. So that's something that I'm particularly proud to have been part of through the day job. It's a great job, by the way, responsible business. Just putting a plug in there as well.
Sounds brilliant. I don't know if anyone else on the panel wanted to share a favourite initiative that they've been involved with.
So there's a lot of big events and big flashy things out there which are really good to be a part of. But I don't think we should belittle, hence I'm going to celebrate the smaller things that you can do week on week. So I'm going to re-mention my mentoring with MCR Pathways, because to my mentee, who comes from quite a sort of fragile home life, who doesn't really have anyone else that you can really share with, because it is quite difficult at home and at school, etc. That hour every week is really important to him and his future, and just having the ability to share in a safe place, in a non-judgmental place, anything that's going on around all these different challenges. So that's just a plug for the little things, if you like, of just spending an hour a week with someone who's maybe having a tough time, but actually helping them through it and just being someone they can speak to. So yeah, that's probably one of my favorites, because ultimately the little things can make as big a difference as the big flashy things now and again.
Brilliant, thank you. So I've got a question here, but probably for Lucy, if that's okay. Again, a big question. These are big questions, but it's a big topic, I suppose. How do we avoid greenwashing?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's a challenge for, I think, all businesses, given the situation we are all in now. I think, we work with the accreditations we're aiming for, like Carbon Disclosure Project. These are very established non-profit businesses that have been up and running for 20, 30 years, and getting kind of rated through them. It's, I suppose, a level playing field, and we have to provide data from across the whole, like, international business, the monitoring of our carbon emissions. Some of that data comes from landlords and our travel management company. So I suppose that's, the data is the data, and that goes to them, and they judge us based on that. We work with a sustainability consultant to try and kind of understand the market. So a challenge coming up for us is at the moment is our offsetting program. And carbon offsetting is really kind of complex space at the moment, and there is the danger of greenwashing within that, because there's money that businesses have set aside to kind of invest in various offsetting programs to meet net zero targets. And it's in some ways quite an unregulated space, and there's so many various offsetting projects that can be purchased. So it's something that we have to be quite careful in terms of how we approach that. But we just have to really work with experts in that field as much as we can to try and understand what the right thing to do is. And what will just make the most long-term impact. And we're looking at kind of different pieces of software as well that we can use to really track all that data, not only our own emissions data, but across our supply chain, as well as the greenhouse gas emissions that we're able to offset. Yeah, we're looking for software that will track that on a kind of ongoing basis and feed that back to us, so we can just have a real clear understanding of that picture. But I think it's certainly something that we have to grapple with all the time in the environmental sustainability space, and we have to be careful not to kind of make big claims that we then can't live up to. So yeah, it's a continual challenge, but I think we're on the right track at the moment.
Brilliant, thanks for that, Lucy. And so we'll just probably wrap up with one final question, if that's okay with the panel. So a good question to finish. So obviously we mentioned about some of our charity partners, Médecins Sans Frontières, for example, but how does CMS go about choosing which charities to work with? Because obviously there's so much choice, and it's, so tricky to kind of narrow that down. We can't work with everybody in all capacities. So how does CMS make those choices?
Well, Emily and Louise, you can fill this in because this is your world, really. But I suppose we are an international business, first and foremost. So whilst we do obviously have a huge UK presence, we do cross borders a lot. So when it comes to the choice of, say, the main international partner, MSF in this case, they have to be someone that people across multiple jurisdictions can identify with and want to support, and obviously along the right values of what we as a firm support. So Room to Read was our last international charity partner because they hit that spot, and now MSF, which, let's face it, during COVID and then war in Europe times, is a really important charity to support right now. Everyone can identify and get behind that as well. War Child were the ones before Room to Read from memory, and they were a massive supported charity too, again crossing boundaries, but that was all about, if you like, at that point war in Syria was a big one, and refugee crises across the world, so it was all about making sure children had the right support. So that just gives you a flavour of, you know, the key things. Effectively, the ones that we choose for our international partnership have to be ones that we can all get behind and support across multiple borders. It can't be, say, a UK charity, because that's too all about us. We need to make sure it's one that across multiple countries we can all get behind and support, for all the reasons that are kind of no-brainers when we make those choices. When it comes to more local partners, I'll probably shut up and let Louise and Emily speak to that, but we're much more, if you like, democratic, because again, we want the people locally to get behind them. So Emily.
Yeah, absolutely, exactly what Chris said. The business is very keen to listen to its people when it comes to this type of thing, particularly in the regions. So we work very closely with our teams or with our staff in the various different regional offices that we have, to work with them to help establish really positive and impactful partnerships. There are some regions that don't have a local charity partner and just choose to focus on the firm's global partner, for example, and that's absolutely fine. So there is not a one size kind of fits all answer to this particular question. But
and I think also it's again kind of worth noting, kind of not when we're talking about charity partners, we don't always talk about, you know, we're not necessarily thinking about them from a fundraising perspective as well. We support a huge number of different charities through pro bono activities and through other in-kind support as well. In some cases from pro bono, it comes through, they you know, are coming to us because we're already working with them in other areas of the business. Others, it's kind of, you know, introduced through our pro bono brokers. So there's a huge range of charities that we actually work with as a firm. Yeah, kind of it's, I just wish you could help more.
Brilliant.
A couple of questions in there, very quick answers to them, if you like, Anita, that I can just give. So there's a contextual recruitment and blind interviews. Yes, obviously on D&I, we're very passionate about that to make sure that we're ruling out as much unconscious bias as you possibly can in the interview process. Louise can speak to that because she's involved in the social mobility focus that we do. So again, just to answer there, yes, very focused on that, very aware of it. There was one other that I saw that was really important that I think is worthy of an answer from the chat. Sorry, we're not going to get through them all.
Balance clients and work with voluntary work.
That's the one. Yeah, so effectively that's the big debate for law firms, particularly the big ones and the busy ones. But so it goes back to what I said earlier about we allocate hours. You still get recognised for hours that you put towards all this responsible business stuff. So it's not like all about you have the targets. It's all about the billable hour. There is an allocation for everyone across the business towards responsible business stuff. So yeah, we'd already factor that in, if you like, to the science, the metrics, the calculator, if you like. But when it comes to, again, squeezing in around client priorities, my answer to that would be, you know, I'm a partner in the firm, probably one of the busiest ones, but also when I was a senior associate, a junior solicitor, all the way back to 2007 when I joined the firm, you will make time for what you want and, you know, what you consider a priority. There's always time for this stuff. And yes, you're going to find people who won't, and that's okay. There's no judgment there at all. But if it's something that you're passionate about, you will find time to do it. And you will only ever get support from CMS generally to do it. And I think that's the message I'd probably leave you with there, because we are a busy profession. You can drown in work very easily. Actually, what I find is if you do make the time for this, everything else is easier in terms of all that client work, because actually, I don't know, it makes the job more rounded and more enjoyable if you do make the time to squeeze that bit in as well. And I always have, and I've never regretted it, if that helps.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. What a fantastic way to end this session. So that draws this event to a close. What a fantastic, inspiring session it was too. Thank you to everybody who has tuned in. Thank you to our 4 wonderful speakers for those great insights and great responses to those questions. Thank you to our Meet and Engage team for making us all look good, and thank you to Ella who's been working hard in the background on the chat function. Have a wonderful afternoon and hope to see you at future virtual events.